Um, Antifa thug. Oh man, that's rough. He gets 6 years in jail. Oh man.
Oh,
Jesus.
shucks.
Gee God willigers. By and large, the violent mobs of Antifa are not prevented from terrorizing the communities they protest in. And by protest, we mean riot.
Right.
They almost entirely operate in regressive leftist havens like Portland and Berkeley, where they have the passive support of government officials. Because of this, they are given wide latitude to attack people, like physically, literally attack them, destroy property, disrupt conservative and centrist events.
Shutting down people's ability to speak. The thing is that the government officials in California and Maine hate free speech just as much as Antifa does. The mainstream media are in the agreement as well. They also hate free speech. They also want to deplatform and censor and shut up people like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. They say, scary things like facts that don't care about your feelings. They usually draw the line right before endorsing Antifa's violence. However, sometimes they endorse those tactics as well. Of course, I'm referencing people like Maxine Waters who do advocate for Antifa's tactics of getting in people's face and shutting them down.
Don Lemon also very much loves them.
Yes, Don Lemon, worst journalist of the year, right? Yes. The left-wing elitists don't want to prevent Antifa from committing acts of violence because those acts of violence are a means to their desired ends. They want to shut down dissent and accumulate more power. Antifa are the useful idiots they are using, and they will eventually dispose of once they are no longer useful.
Members of the Black Bloc are rarely held accountable. This is very much a good thing, but this is very much a good thing on the rare occasions when they are. Oh, but it is a very much good thing when on the rare occasions that they are actually held accountable. This week, a judge in Portland sentenced a 24-year-old member of Antifa who goes by the street name Shit for Brains to 70 months in jail for the crime of bashing an elderly man over the head with a collapsible baton. That's not very nice.
Not at all. 70 months or just about 6 years in jail for attempted murder. And that Shit for Brains was charged with first-degree assault. And because they let Shit for Brains make a plea deal, he bled down from the maximum sentence for first-degree assault of 90 months down to 70. His defense attorney, however, said that 6 years was much too long for someone with no criminal record. Also, Jeffrey Epstein was murdered to protect high-profile pedophiles.
Well, Shit for Brains' defense attorney can go fuck herself. There are multiple angles of video showing him coming up to this man unprovoked and bashing him over the head twice with a weapon. Given that the man was elderly, giving the elderly man a concussion that ripped his head open. His actions could easily and reasonably be expected to have possibly killed the old man. His actions were clearly premeditated, based on him coming with the Black Bloc with the intent to engage in conflict. This was not just an assault. This was an attempted murder, and it doesn't matter that he didn't have a criminal record. This is one of those cases where the crime is bad enough that the first time it needs to be dealt with severely. They need to make an example of people like Shit for Brains to discourage more people from doing what he did.
Thank you for the lemon, Tetris Freak. There's also no reason for them to give him a plea deal. They had an open and shut case. There was clear, irrefutable video evidence of him from multiple angles committing the crime. The police held all the cards in a plea negotiation, and yet they managed to reduce the sentence by 20 months. He deserved a lot more, and the prosecutor should never have caved. Thank you for the lemon, Star Shadow.
Yay, Star Shadow gave us a lemon. Boy, this guy is going to get a rude awakening in jail if he serves. And
Survives.
if he survives, that is not even close to how you spell survives. But
Nope.
I'll
Nope.
go with it. And frankly, I don't care if he does. Hopefully, he will have a greater appreciation for what an actual white supremacist acts like.
um, if you're wondering why I lack compassion for the Antifa terrorists, it's because they do stuff like what they did to Andy Ngo this week. In case you don't know, Andy Ngo is a freelance journalist who routinely reports on what Antifa does. He doesn't write opinion pieces mocking them per se, calling them names or lying about them. And he just takes video of what they actually do and publish it so that people can see what Antifa does. They hate Andy because he shows how violent and bigoted they are.
Let's see here. Antifa hates journalists in general, but they have a particularly large hate boner for Andy Ngo. They hate him so much that they infamously mobbed him earlier this year, bashing him in the head several times, leaving him with brain bleeding that he still suffers from, that he will suffer from for likely the rest of his life. They stole his filming equipment and threw milkshakes allegedly laced with Quikrete in them on him. This week on Halloween, 6 suspected members of Antifa continued their intimidation campaign against Andy by going to his house in the middle of the night wearing cutout masks of Andy's face. Well, that's creepy.
Yes. Antifa attempting to intimidate him isn't very funny, but it is a little bit funny that the scariest thing they could think of was Andy Ngo.
Right, like an overweight gay Asian immigrant is like the biggest threat to democracy. Like, Jesus Christ. Like,
Sounds like fascist, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Andy again, like gay Asian overweight. That is like the height of white supremacy, I guess. Like that's all that they could think of. They couldn't find anybody else. I mean,
Yeah.
not, and I don't say that to denigrate Andy because Andy has said that about himself, where he's like, really, like I'm not that intimidating. Like I'm just here. Like I'm not intimidating at all, and I don't fit any of these narratives that they want to throw at me, and they hate me, like visceral hate for him because of that.
Trevor said, lace with Quikrete. Sounds like you dropped 500 milligrams of Quikrete into a milkshake instead of it being a concrete brick in a cup. Cool. So we know it wasn't a concrete brick in a cup. It was still liquid, right? Mm-hmm. However, there was reports that the milkshakes some milkshakes were being filled with a portion of Quikrete, and also that the milkshake that was thrown on Andy Ngo and some others seemed to dry fast and be hard, like it had been mixed with concrete or Quikrete, though that could not be confirmed. They didn't test it.
It's so, I don't know. Then this was needed. There's been over the summer, late in the summer, I know there was quite a few Antifa that were starting to get sentences, and they were very surprised. Like, oh my God, you guys are coming after us? Like, how dare you? They were all little Gretas about it. But this needs to happen. This guy. So, Darren and I were talking about this earlier about how does this stack up with attempted murder? If you are just so mentally incapable that you don't understand what it is that you're doing, but you're doing, like, let's say like you think it would be funny to run your friend over with a car. That's attempted murder. Even if you think it was a joke, it doesn't matter. You've done something that would, presumably have killed him. And so for even just for the sake of getting you off the streets. So if this guy wants to plead that he's so dumb, which he may be, but I don't think he is. I do think he knew what he was doing. He wants to plead that he was so dumb that he didn't realize that hitting an elderly man on the head with a baton, leaving gashes that you guys can see on the screen right now. If he didn't think that was going to kill the guy, then he still needs to be taken off the street. If he's not going to be locked up in jail, he needs to be locked to a bed in a straitjacket. So he can pick, but it needs to be one of those things. And there was there's a lot of discussion about rehabilitation, and there always is anytime somebody goes to jail, and just like the prison system in general. The Some people forget that the justice system is the justice system. It's not the rehabilitation system. It's the justice system. So at a certain point, and people who advocate for like releasing people from prison and all that stuff, they think I'm the worst kind of person for what I'm about to say. But it's something that needs to be said, and it's something that a lot of people don't feel comfortable saying in this particular, in current year. And that is that the justice here is that he goes and has to do something that he doesn't like doing. He has to go sit in jail for X number of years. That is the justice. His reform, his rehabilitation, that is secondary to him being punished. He's trying to kill a member of the community, the American community, let's say. There needs to be a punishment for that so that he understands that he can't do that. Again, there's a secondary aspect to that is rehabilitation, and maybe that's a route for him. But primarily, and people have forgotten this, primarily going to jail for things like this is a punishment. It is entirely secondary for rehabilitation.
And that punishment needs to be severe enough that some people who are still somewhat rational would say, I'm not going to risk taking these actions because I don't want the punishment. A lot of people, like you said, they're being surprised they're being prosecuted because they thought they wouldn't be prosecuted. They didn't think there was going to be a consequence to their actions. They felt morally justified in assaulting with the possibility of permanently maiming or killing someone because they felt that what they were doing was okay and that there would be no consequence for it. And now, obviously, a big problem there is that the people were taught this. And their experiences, also went along with what they were being taught because the police weren't actually consistently holding people accountable for their actions, right? So if you have Antifa that over and over go to different events where they are progressively becoming more violent, and each time the police do nothing, they become emboldened to be more violent next time. The police's inaction is creating more violence, right?
Yep.
And then the media supporting their actions, praising their actions, and defending their action is further encouraging them to make more severe actions.
And maybe the rehabilitation that he gets is realizing, wow, I'm just fucking retarded. I ended up in here because of how absolutely moronic I am. And when he gets out, or maybe while he's still in, somebody will do a documentary on it, and he'll be like, hey, all you stupid ass Antifa people, I was that, and this is what happened to me, and maybe you shouldn't do that. That would be the best case. So again, everybody's always so worried about the criminal. Rarely do people get worried about the victims. Rarely do people get worried about the rest of society or what it means for them. Everybody's so focused on the criminal rights, and nobody's ever talking about the what are the rights of the victims. And so I think it should have been longer. They should have gone for the full. I don't understand. Maybe we can. Maybe there'll be a breakdown on that. Maybe there'll be some kind of like Freedom of Information Act report that'll come out on that. I'm sure it's all public record. This guy wasn't anything classified as to why they pled down, but they certainly should have gone for the full amount, and they need to go for the full amount next time. And I think it's on Portland and places like where these things happened at. It's on them to start increasing surveillance so that they can catch these people.
Yeah. I think that I would have been okay with 6 years if it was, instead of being 6 years in jail, it was 6 years living in Venezuela.
That would have been, jail's a lot easier.
Would have been poetic. Because, they're socialists. So go to Venezuela, learn a lesson.